Yeah.
Okay, final day of competition, and I feel like there are so many different stories that we could pick up on here. Are the Brits going to make a new Olympic record? At the heartbreak of Team Japan, we're going to talk about that. They've dropped out of the bronze medal position after making a substitution. There's a chance that the Big Six will be broken. This is like the day.
I always think you should just hold a second, even though like people will watch it back. I still think we should like just hold a second while we get going.
Start big, mate.
Start big. I mean, there's 0 people watching at this moment in time, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Do you remember his first? Anyone who's been watching the live shows, thank you firstly, but secondly, if you our first dressage reaction show, Dirham you started slowly, mate. You're like, don't think there's really been any action. You know, really
I stand by it. I stand by it in the same way as I stood by yesterday. You told me that Laura's time penalties didn't matter.
I did not say that. Okay, of course they matter. It's how
what did you say?
We were trying to get in.
You kind of said they didn't really matter that much.
Yeah, well, you kind of said they're not that big a thing.
Team first.
I said that too, to be honest.
No, it's where it sits on the, like, of course there'll be a bit of a, as she crosses the finish line. And now, Nicole, you've pulled me up on this, so I can't, like, honestly, looking back, you'd be like, Sam should be happy being 1 second over at Burley. And I actually do remember how fuming I was, but it's an individual competition. And I think job done. I as in for the team, like, I think there was a lot. She had 4 jobs to do. She had to keep herself in her own. Anyway, we won't go over it.
I'm going to jump in. We debated this significantly yesterday. Let's move on, because there is something else that we should talk about, and that is the elephant in the room of Ros Cantor's 15 penalties. So there was a massive long appeal. The results weren't finalised until much later last night. I think it was 6 hours. Lawyers, everything involved. 15 penalties stand. So the Brits lead 82.5. The record is 86.3. They're just ahead of the French. They've got a pole and a little bit in hand of the French, but that is it now. It is so much tighter than it would have been. So Kylie, first of all, reaction from you on the 15 penalties and everything that has unfolded over the last 12 hours.
So I'm going to be completely patriotic and say it's an absolute travesty that it was given, because I truly believe that she was not the wrong side of the flag. I'm not saying she didn't take the flag, that was plain for everyone to see, but I'd say she was fractionally big time robbed. That's my opinion, and I'm going to put that out there. But hey, grand juries, decisions are made, we've gone forwards, we can't go back on that as the people we are in this room. But yeah, I feel for Ros, and I feel like everybody that you speak to is in her court fighting for her. So, but then I talk to a lot of British people. Would I talk to enough French people to caveat that? So let's just put that there.
I picked myself up on it last night, actually, because I was reflecting on 3 years ago in Tokyo, and admittedly, there has been a video of Ros's penalties or no penalties, or her jumping the fence, circulating across Facebook quite widely, that was taken by a spectator or a fan. And actually, that doesn't stand up in an appeal basis. It has to be official footage, I believe. But I had to go back and check myself that 3 years ago, I was nowhere near as up in arms as I am now over Michael Young's 11 penalties. But I hadn't seen that video. I've since seen it. And actually, I do feel quite strongly that it was an 11 penalties that happened when he was well away from the fence. So I think naturally we're British. Ros is such a brilliant character in the sport. So we're bound to feel more emotion. But actually, this was a position that we were in the sport 3 years ago. And it played out, and it cost Michael Young an Olympic title. He could be going for 4 Olympic titles here. That would be absolutely huge, Sam, because we're going to get onto the individual competition a little bit later on. But actually, in terms of how it plays out in the individual leaderboard, it's made an impact. Ros was well in touch for an individual medal.
Yeah. So look, the whole flag. There's lots of things in sport. There's things out of your control. There's things in your control. There's things that are unfortunate, and there are things that are unfair. of all of the things, obviously the only things you can control are the ones within your control. But sometimes your opposition make a big mistake and hand you a victory. Those are the things that are out of your control. Sometimes, there's a bomb scare and the thing has to be, rescheduled or something. That's unfortunate. That's bad chance. And then sometimes there's unfair, bad decision. Rugby, the ball, was it grounded? Was it not grounded? There's a camera angle that shows it was clearly grounded and the ref didn't see that and there was no try and they didn't get the points. The unfair decisions, the ones that feel unfair, are the hardest to take and they cause the most controversy. This all started when the rule came out, and it's why it's a technicality, and it happens at the. People said, right, we've got to rule whether people are inside or outside a flag, because sometimes they're obviously clearly outside. So we have to draw a line somewhere. We've got to write a rule to draw the line. And are we going to say 50% of the horse has to be in? Well, it's very hard to quantify what's 50% of the horse. So what they went with is all of the horses to be inside the flag. Now, 99.9% of the time, we rule with common sense. And we look at a video like Roz's and we go, she's clearly jumped the fence. Like, I mean, no even issue. And at any other event, that's the decision, is like, there's no issue there. If you're getting really technical and you bring in microscopic things, is there 1 millimeter of Graffalo's fur that is outside of where that flag was initially positioned at any point? And normally it's after they jump the fence, and normally it's the flank of the horse and it's like their tail or their hoof. And when this rule came out, that's what people like Harry Mead, who really read these rules and go, hang on, I know people will rule this with common sense, but the problem is going to be the Olympic Games, when for the first and only time, it'll be someone trying to rule against. Because in this sport, if Dearn beats me in Ballindennis, something really wrong with my performance, if that happens. Really gotten into the eventing. But if he does, I'm not going to bring my lawyers into a room and start looking at footage and say, hey, come on, let's review this. It only happens at an Olympics. So it's not about whether Roz jumped or did or didn't jump the fence. It's about how the rule is written. Common sense, and that feels awful for us to take, because if there was, cricket is like going, come on, bit of sportsmanship. She's clearly jumped the fence. It's not about sport. It's unfortunately the world we live in. It's just about trying to make a legal decision.
The bit that I would just pick up on as well, and this is something that we'll probably be digesting post-Olympic Games, is that actually there's been a lot of conversation around what the sport will look like in LA, if it is in LA. And one of the things that has been pitched about is flag penalties, in so much as if you knock a flag, you get a penalty, because that takes away the grey area. And I can't help but feel that this will only fuel that fire going into the next Olympic cycle. That's a conversation down the line.
Can I give But my opinion, so Nicole, you're dead. So it's a really important point, because a lot of people don't like the idea of flag penalties, because they don't like the idea that what Roz did yesterday should be penalized. I agree that what Roz did yesterday shouldn't be penalized. So and again, we don't want to open the floor to everyone's solution to the flag penalty, but I like the idea of a flag penalty, but I would put penalty flags 5 inches outside of the numbering flags. So you've got 2 flags there and you've got your numbers on. Say, this is the obstacle you have to jump, and here's the red flag and the white flag. And you might not even do it on every fence, but on some fences and all the actual ones, now here are 2 other flags that sit 5 inches outside, and they are penalty flags. So if you've clearly lost control and you've clearly gone through the shoulder and you hit that flag, you just have to make contact with that flag and you're penalized. Like in driving, they have the balls that fall off the little things. But it's the 2 points here is, one, it's 100%, as you say, this is why people and I've been for penalty flags, and I think people think, Sam, you're expecting horses to do unreasonable things. I'm saying, no, I'm trying to avoid controversy. I don't care where you put the flags, make the fences wider, do all that kind of, do what you like to make it jumpable, but make it objective.
Okay, I'm sure this is going to be a conversation that rumbles on, but ultimately we are where we are heading into the team competition today. Great Britain in the gold, France in silver, Japan were in the team bronze medal position overnight. However, Unfortunately, Sekatinka and Arosu Katajima are withdrawing at the final horse inspection, which means they've got a substitution. Toshiyuki Tanaka, Jefferson come in. They take the 20 penalties, which drops them down to, I think it is 5th on the leaderboard. Switzerland move up into the team bronze. Belgium move up into 4th. The big 6 nations we have been talking about a lot over the last few days. The big 6 is going to be broken here. Their stranglehold on team medals is going to end in Paris.
Yep, but I guess if we go for what the version of the story is, last night we talked about what a story Team Japan was going to be. It's the first thing is it is absolutely brilliant to break the big 6 stranglehold. It's so important. I think if it had been Team Japan, it might have been a wider story for the sport. The fact that it looks like it's going to be Switzerland that take that 3rd place is going to be brilliant in that country. They're already a reasonably strong eventing country. I would put them into that next bracket of the kind of 3, 4, 5, maybe Ireland, Sweden, Switzerland, who you'd say sit in that, and Japan, who sit in that group just outside the big 6 that have been coming for a little while. It looks to me now, based on the latest predictions center work, Switzerland are now up to 66% likely to finish on the podium. So Britain are above 99%. They're almost pushing that 100% likely to finish on the podium, and still at an 80% win chance. France, again, almost certain to finish on the podium at that 99% likelihood. And then you've got Switzerland, 66%, Belgium and Japan then 15 and 16%, just knocking on the door, not much between them. Now, what I would say is if we go back to Pratoni, Pratoni was a qualifier, as the World Games are for the Olympics. Pratoni was a qualifier for here. And I remember talking to Kai-Stefan Meyer of Belgium as we went into the top, and at that point it was just the top 6 was what we were talking about, not top 3, but the point remains the same. And Belgium were a 50 to 60% chance, I think, at the time going into the show jumping, of finishing in that top 6 placing. And then it began to move. So the fact that it is a 66% chance, I don't think it's by any stretch a done deal. And I do think that it's a very volatile phase that we can still see movement, and we'll wait for that.
The last phase has been pretty influential. If we look back at Pratoni, particularly 2022, the show jumping has been very, very big. If we get a really big track here today, we're going to see a lot of movement on that leaderboard. I think the only horse to jump a double clear round in Tokyo 3 years ago was Vasily de Lassos, who climbed up to finish on the podium. Only 19 horses actually since Athens 2004 have jumped 2 rounds of show jumping clear. So even sat on a very, very good jumper, they're not accustomed to coming out and jumping a second round on the final day of a big one. Kylie, how do you approach that? What could we expect, do you think, this afternoon with that?
I think on the whole, the first round, I think we saw it in Tokyo as well. I think we maybe see less faults in the first round. I think the horses are used to that format. I think then to go and stand in, and then when they come to their individual jumping, I think that's where we'll end up seeing some more irregularities and some more changes in form, possibly. I think that it'll be interesting to see how, when I looked at, I'm just looking at the computer screen here, the pressure of the margins there between, like, there's not a lot of room, is there, between, we've got New Zealand, Japan, Belgium, that actually the pressure of that in itself, when you're fighting for a team medal and you've maybe not ever had a team medal, that in itself brings its whole mental play on people, where it actually really matters whether the Swiss get a medal or whether the Japanese can claw back enough if there's a bit of unfortunate circumstance ahead. So I think with all of these things, as the athlete, they'll be fighting their own, steering their own ship, fighting their own battle. But I do think that the horses should jump better in the first phase than the second. But I think the pressure on those nations where they could be making history could just show up a few, flies in the ointment. I hope not. I hope they will have really good rounds, obviously.
Fun fact for the Belgian team, it would be the first ever all-female team to finish on the podium at an Olympic Games if Belgium climb up to team bronze. 60 years after the first woman ever competed in eventing, which was actually Tokyo 1964. It would be pretty cool to have an all-female team on the podium. We've seen it in other championships. Obviously, the Brits did it at the Europeans last year, but still, it would be a nice little piece of Olympic history. Right. First horse is going to be heading into jump in a couple of minutes' time. So just a couple of predictions, actually. Sam, from you, what do you expect to see unfold over the next hour and a half for the team competition?
If we get Bertoni, which we talked about the prediction center probably not having a great read on Chris Burton. At the moment, courses like we see in badminton and courses like we see in Bertoni are still outlier courses. They're in there in the modeling, but they're not front and center of the modeling because we don't know for sure that that's how it's going to turn out. But if they built Bertoni again, which we've only seen once before, I wouldn't rule out New Zealand. Falco and Hirado. It's very hard to say that about a 4% win chance, 25-1 if you're doing it. But actually, horse racing and things like that, you see 25-1 shots all the time. And I would say they're probably not a 25-1 shot. I'd say they're probably closer to kind of sub 20 to 1. So like maybe above a 5% chance. So that's kind of like the wild call.
It's not too wild. I mean, Falco is the top rated jumper in the field.
Falco,
and Hirado is number 6, and Menlo Parker and Clark, I think, is probably just outside the top 10. And so like if you put those three in terms of their rating, show jumping rating, they are a little bit under radar. It's one thing that we haven't talked about yet, Nicole, like how are all these horses rated? Like Falco being top rated jumper. Okay, we've known visually Falco is amazing. Once he gets through yesterday, Falco will be around to watch. Interestingly, though, next in line is London 52, Laura Collett, in terms of that overall field. So yes, we spoke a lot about the seconds, and yes, we spoke a lot about the 2:17s and the record-breaking dressage. But over 2 phases, I would expect that Laura still has a real right chance of getting this done. Prediction Center, because Michael's in control, has Michael at a 60% chance. Like, it's his to lose now. But I definitely think on ratings, what we've seen from London 52, the door is open-ish. What is she, 20%?
27% to win.
I was just going to say, interestingly, since Athens, since 2 rounds of show jumping came in, the cross-country leader has not gone on to win. So the last 5 runnings of the Olympic Games, 2 rounds of jumping, the leader has not stayed on top. So that's worth bearing in mind as well.
Misleading stat. But it's good to get the hype. He's a 60% win chance. The frightening things here, drawing your attention, folks, to stories and angles that would be full of emotion, but you might not be thinking of them right now. 32%, so almost a 1 in 3 chance that Laura Collett doesn't win a medal of any color. That would be heartbreak. There is a 34%, so again, in and around that 1 in 3 chance that Tom McEwen does win a medal, gets past Felix Bog, gets past Christopher Burton. Between them, Christopher Burton and Felix Bog have a 12% chance of winning this. So they would, both of those, I don't think people would have seen them coming as much. I know definitely, I mean, they're in our Paddy Power account. I mean, Nicole, you've got all bases covered.
I've got the top 4. I'm so excited.
Yeah, but I think there is movement in there. That 80-20 Great Britain versus France, I really favor Great Britain here. Over I know the French and home crowd and all that kind of stuff, but I think you guys will be feeling nervous. I think you'll underplay that. I think, to be honest, if someone would give me the odds that reflect the 80% chance, I'd be with Great Britain at that.
It's funny, actually, because I was looking up the French team's jumping record this morning. They're good jumpers. Diablo Month is a good jumper. Triton Fontaine, I think, has jumped clear in his last 6 or had 1 rail in his last 6 or something. Chamon du Monceau, Stéphane Landois, has had a rail down in each of his last 6 from 7, I think, and he had 1 clear round. So he's the most likely to have a rail. He'll jump second for the French team. He'll jump last for the French team, actually, I think. So there could be a bit of movement. The one thing I would say, watch out for the French riders going absolutely wild, trying to make that crowd lose their minds at the end of their rounds, as the British horses will be coming next in. I'm sure that the team will be all over it in terms of, how to play that. But I think there will be some real mastermind tactics at play this morning.
I think keep it simple. What will make it harder for them to do their celebratory laps is that they're all going to have one down. If you look at where they are on ratings, it's like Diablo Mont is the top.
More. You look at the energy. You look at how they finished yesterday compared to. You look at Diablo Mont finishing the cross country yesterday.
They're just on show jumping ratings, pal, where you put them.
Yeah. But it
like, all
the
Brits are in the top 3 or 4 in the field, or top 5 in the field. The French Diablo Mont is 20th. The other 2 boys are 35th and 37 from the 60. They're all expected at around the pole, and we have to tell the story piece, but also if you want to kind of feel your way into the competition, they're all much more likely to be one down than clear rounds. Of course, they can jump clear. Of course, it can be 2, but it's all trending around the 1. 7 poles down for the first horse in. Jesus.
Watch this space. There we go. Right, we're gonna dive straight into it, okay? Because
I need to tell you, David, while you're there,
guys, if you have. It's a good point. Jeremy's about to tell you about the.
He's 8th of the 12 rated in the individuals, and we had him expected at 2 anyway. 2 rails, that is.
No, but it obviously, it looks tough.
It'll be a distance as you learn it, yeah.
All of those ratings, folks, as to who are the top jumpers in the field, the team win chances, the individual win chances in that Echo WhatsApp channel. It is all completely free for you. You've just got to click the links and get in there. And I've had a couple of nice people who are not really numbersy people, but they said to me, "Oh my God, for the first time I could really follow the sport and know what was going on." So thanks. So it's worth getting in that. Thank you, everyone.
Right, we'll be back. We'll check in later. Enjoy the roller coaster. We will be back. Thanks, team. Let's go and watch some show jumping.
See you in a bit.